I'm honored to be joined by my next guest, one of the bravest guys walking around right now, the man who single-handedly challenged one of the largest corporations in the world, Zach Vorhies, the Google whistleblower. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be on here.
It is incredibly brave what you've chosen to do. You left a job where, as you've told us, you were being paid over $250,000 per year to program and develop software for Google. You decided that your integrity, your soul, as you've put it, was far more valuable than the cash, and you've revealed to the world some stunning revelations about what Google was up to. Just give us a quick overview for people who might have been asleep under a rock and haven't heard about you.
I'm a senior software engineer, or was, at Google for 8.5 years. And then in 2016, after Trump won the election, Google started to take a complete radical change in the way that they operated the company. And they started to betray their mission statement of organizing the world's information and making it universally accessible by engaging in censorship and suppression of quote-unquote fake news. And so over a period of time, I started to investigate Google and what exactly they meant by fake news. And what I found out is that they were intending to censor real stories and real events that were happening. My breaking point came in June of 2017 after I discovered that they were deleting words out of their translation dictionary in order to make a Trump tweet sound crazy. Then I realized that this was a highly biased political machine and that I needed to blow the whistle on Google no matter what the personal cost. And so I reached out to media and law enforcement, submitting information about Google's extensive censorship program, which they were denying. And that leads us to today, where 950 pages has been released to the public, 950 pages has been released to the Department of Justice, and now there are many parallel antitrust investigations that are now going down. And people all over the world and the United States are realizing that Google has been engaging in election interference on a global scale.
So while they've had us believing or attempting to make people believe that Russia was interfering with the election, it was actually Palo Alto interfering with the election.
Russia doesn't even hold a candle to the vote manipulation that Google has been engaging in. You know, they have been look what they just did with Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
You know, they took down her account right after the DNC debates when everyone was searching for her. Right. And if they can do that to someone that is, you know, running for the highest office in the nation, what stops them from doing that to each one of us, you know, and medium players as well? You know, this is an existential threat. And whenever I thought that there would be a line that Google wouldn't cross, they've crossed it. And so, you know, this is something that we all know to be true. Google has slandered those that have been saying the truth as conspiracy theorists, which is one of the reasons why I've been coming forward. With this document dump, conspiracy theory has now become conspiracy fact.
Wow. And I don't know if everybody watching has seen this picture, but they literally descended on you with potentially deadly force, surrounding you with the police, some kind of fake report about a bomb. What happened here in this photo?
Right. So after Google became aware that I had sent their information to the DOJ, they outed me on Twitter, and then I created a dead man switch and tweeted about it. They responded by so a dead man switch is when someone says that in the event of their death, that information will become public. So I did that with Twitter, and within a few hours, Google had called in a wellness check. And they sent police to a decoy address that I had set up, which is actually my friend's address.
Wow.
I got word that they were trying to come after me and trying to possibly arrest me. So a little bit after they came to my decoy address, they came to my real address. I decided that I was going to use my rights not to talk to the police, and I didn't answer the door. The police used the lame excuse of a tin can filled with alcohol and decided that that could be a bomb. And so they called in a bomb squad. They called in the SWAT team. They shut down about 3 blocks on Valencia Street, and they evacuated the theater right next to me. And so I had to come out of my house with my hands up, with guns pointed at me, so that they could ask me questions about whether I was feeling suicidal.
Wow. Which, of course, you were not.
No, I was not. And, you know, I had taken a picture of the letter that I had sent to Google. So when the police were like, well, why would Google call in a wellness check? And I said, probably because I delivered incriminating documents to the Department of Justice. And I showed them my phone, which had a picture of the letter. And then they realized that, wow, I was a whistleblower. I wasn't someone that was actually, you know, planning on doing any sort of thing violent.
Wow, so that's amazing. So you brought the police around in real time to understand, because the police are obviously not part of a grand Google conspiracy. They just receive a phone call and respond to whatever it is that they're told. The thing that's important, and you know, I have also seen all of your interviews that you did on TruePundit.com with Mike Moore. It's important to note that powerful people, in your case, the heads of Google, can utilize the police as a deadly weapon. They send the police. That introduces a level of jeopardy for you when the cops are in your house and they're expecting they're arriving somewhere that a bomb is being constructed. Guns are out. One wrong move, you could be dead.
That's right. That's right. Which is the reason why I didn't want to answer the door. Was because if they're going to escalate, then what's going to happen is that people are going to see it and they're going to start turning their cameras on to see what's happening. And so in the event that there's like a mistake, well, there's a bunch of people that are going to witness it, and the cover-up becomes a lot more difficult.
Right, right. Now, how long had you worked at Google before the 2016 election?
I've been working there 5.5 years. So I first started off with the Google Earth project. After 5.5 years, I left to start my own company, which still exists today, called Zackies.com. And then I returned back to Google because the money was really good. And I went to work for their YouTube division as a senior software engineer. And then 3 months later, you know, Trump won. And then the whole company changed.
So you've told us that obviously we know they don't like Trump, but that's really surprising how it changed on a dime. So Eric Schmidt was the CEO at the time that Trump won. I think a lot of people who watch Crowdsource the Truth remember that Eric Schmidt famously and abruptly left Google when Donald Trump passed this executive order that allowed for seizure of assets of anyone who was assisting in human trafficking or providing technological assistance. In light of what's happened with Jeffrey Epstein, it seems pretty related. Do you have any information about why Eric Schmidt would have left so abruptly?
You know, what I know about that is that nobody in the company saw this coming. The way that we all found out was that Eric Schmidt sent a tweet, and then the tweet got forwarded to the people, the employees. So the company itself did not announce that Eric Schmidt was leaving. We found out externally. And I find that it was ironic that hours after the executive order about seizing property related to people involved in human rights abuses, that within hours of that Eric Schmidt resigned over Twitter.
Yeah. And it's the second time you've mentioned Twitter in connection with Google. We'll talk in a minute about what connection there may or may not be. But you said that Google had deleted dictionary words or something like that. What does that mean? I don't know. I certainly didn't understand that.
Okay, so let's backtrack to May of 2017.
Yeah.
Trump is in Saudi Arabia. He returns, and I believe on May 31st, he did the following tweet. despite the constant negative press, covfefe. Now, the New York Times wrote that covfefe was a nonsense word.
Right.
But the problem with this is that translate.google.com was decoding the word, and the word was being translated to "we will stand up." So if you take the tweet and you combine the word, it makes a lot of sense. Despite the negative constant press, we will stand up. Well, Google created a design document that said, well, according to the New York Times, this word is nonsense. So obviously our translation engine is wrong.
Huh.
And so what they did is that they made a design doc to delete this word and replace it with an Easter egg. However, I believe that that Easter egg, which was an icon of a guy shrugging, was actually plausible deniability, because when the word got replaced, there was no Easter egg. There was no guy shrugging. The word just got deleted. And the crazy thing about this is that the team doing the censorship, they named themselves the Derrida team. And if you remember, Jacques Derrida was the philosopher that advocated for the destruction of Western society through an attack on the English language.
Wow.
By changing the definition of words. So there's all these words that they're using that indicate that they know exactly what they're doing. And when I saw this word being deleted, and then I saw the fact that the media was using this in part of its justification for removing the president because he was mentally unstable, the 25th Amendment, that's when I realized that this was a national security issue, and that no matter what the cost, I needed to come forward to law enforcement and to the media and to the American people and let them know that Google was not a politically neutral organization. It was a highly biased political machine bent on, not only messing with the elections we had seen with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, but also involved in an attempted coup against the President of the United States.
Wow. It's amazing, Zach. I think the people of the United States are lucky to have a person like you who, first of all, you're obviously incredibly intelligent. I mean, I've never heard of Jacques Derrida, and knowing those things in the first place, and being in the position that you were to be able to connect those dots, absolutely astounding, and it's a good thing that you did. For people who are watching who are maybe not so internet savvy or video gamers, the context that you're speaking about, Easter eggs within, it's like a hidden message within something, not an actual painted egg that people would hunt for in April. But I just like to clarify, because we have a lot of viewers who aren't as savvy as you are. So back to Twitter for a second. There's no official connection between Google and Twitter, is there?
There's a lot of people that are investors that sit on boards of both companies. Blackwater and Vanguard I think, are the two main investors for both companies. So, the ownership structure looks very similar between them.
Yeah, and is Blackwater Investments, is that connected to the Blackwater private military group that we've heard so much about?
That's my assumption, but don't quote me on that. I don't really know.
It's interesting for sure. So, see, that's important, because the perception, no directory there, okay. The perception from the public's point of view is that Google and Twitter are two different independent things. They can be kind of maybe checks and balances against one another so that we don't have this monopolization of the internet. But as you've pointed out, it's very easy for billionaire types to sit on the boards of these various organizations and steer them in a variety of ways that basically, for all intents and purposes, makes them into a single monolithic organization that can act. And we've seen that happen. The banning of Alex Jones, the banning of Laura Loomer, these things seem to be happening as if these organizations are all acting as one.
Like, I think Alex Jones was banned on all the social media platforms within minutes of each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, like, they're not even trying to hide their collusion. They're just it's all happening. When you see someone being banned from all the social media platforms at the same time, you realize that there's collusion going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So while we're talking about billionaire types, I want to take you back to Eric Schmidt, because he's a very interesting guy, and the fact that he left so abruptly and that you learned through Twitter definitely seems bizarre. Him leaving, right after Trump makes that announcement, totally bizarre. What do you know, Zach, if anything, about this company, Schmidt Futures? It's sort of some sort of a philanthropic venture capital effort created by Mr. Schmidt. Do you know anything about Schmidt Futures?
I don't know anything about Schmidt Futures, but now that you brought it up, I will investigate, because that's a good lead.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason why I'm so glad you're here. Crowdsource the Truth is all about bringing together disparate guests who have lots of information and knowledge, and no matter how smart anybody is, there's no way to know about everything. And one of the things that I find really strange about Schmidt Futures is that we know that Eric Schmidt was closely connected to the Hillary Clinton campaign. You're telling us that after Trump won, Google realigned its entire mission to sabotage the Trump presidency and to prevent a second term for Donald Trump. You might be very interested to know that the CEO of Schmidt Futures is the same guy who was the CEO of the Clinton Foundation and who is alleged to be a whistleblower. It's Eric Braverman.
Wow, I did not know that. That's fascinating. He's a whistleblower? Yes. What is he blowing the whistle on?
Well, I mean, again, it's a little bit vague because we've been sort of tracking this for 2 years and it's hard to get any information about it, but it's believed that Mr. Braverman went to the FBI to talk to them about some of the financial shenanigans of the Clinton Foundation, and he was not seen for months after that. He essentially disappeared. I traveled to Oxford, England to hear him give a speech at the Blavatnik School of Government, and it was very strange how Mr. Braverman was, well, let's say there were a lot of people who were working very hard to prevent me from speaking to him, including physically detaining me at the moment that I was about to approach him. He was entering an elevator. I was literally grabbed. So it's hard to say what Mr. Braverman may or may not know, but he seems to be being handled in some way.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, these players at the top, they are colluding with each other. And there's a lot of dirty money that flows between a lot of these so-called philanthropies. So the fact that there's someone that is blowing the whistle on the fact that there's funding money being siphoned off from one organization to the other doesn't really surprise me at all. I mean, you know, anyone that's been paying attention for the last 20 years realizes that there's some really funny stuff going on with these international organizations, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems more than ever, you know, we've got the international reach of the internet and, you know, borders are really eroding more than ever. Technology has a way of doing that. I mean, certainly prior to the invention of the airplane, somebody in Yemen didn't really pose a threat, or sorry, I didn't mean to choose Yemen, but Iran, Iraq, wherever, these distant countries were sort of not that threatening to the United States simply due to the fact that it was so hard to get here. But now people can get on planes. Of course, tomorrow is 9/11 and you can fly a plane. And I'm not saying that I believe that terrorists flew those planes, but the point is technology is shrinking the world, and even more than air travel, the internet has done that, in that we can communicate ideas and share political ideologies around the world in a split second in the way that we never could before, and people can be monitored. Another billionaire guy that comes to mind, and you mentioned Trump in Saudi Arabia, which always brings to mind this incredibly weird picture of Abdulaziz and Trump with their hands on this Palantir sphere. When I mention Palantir, I presume you know who I'm going to talk about, Peter Thiel. He is certainly a guy who's all over the place in your world. What are your thoughts, or do you have any, about Peter Thiel?
Peter Thiel is an interesting character. I like a lot of his ideas that he has, and I recommend anyone who wants to kind of understand global politics a little bit better, listen to what Peter Thiel has to say. He doesn't talk all that much, but when he does talk, I always learn an incredible amount. An interesting story is that I actually interviewed with Palantir back in 2000 and it was either 8 or 9, and I got a sneak peek at what they were building. And what they were building was a shadow networking system similar to Facebook, except the people themselves didn't enter their information into the social networking graph. It was actually agents that were tracking information. And the justification that I heard for this shadow networking site was that they were only going to use it to monitor terrorists. Right. And I sat there and I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, why can't they just flip the switch and start doing it to all Americans based upon the metadata of their phone calls and their emails and all this information? And then I realized that what they were building was like Facebook, but a shadow version of it. Right. And so my question is, what exactly has that evolved to? And why isn't that being talked about in the media at all? Like, we know about Facebook, and everyone's got an opinion on Facebook, but that's just what we can see. Imagine what we can't see that has billions of dollars in shadow money flowing to it. So I think that there's a lot of questions that need to be asked about Peter Thiel and his ventures. He does have some selective truth that he's revealing, and I hope he continues to do that.
But it's I'm really intrigued by what you've just said, and you've got more insight into it than I do. I'm just looking at Palantir, and I believe there was an issue where the NYPD ditched Palantir because they had determined that there was some kind of backdoor or some sort of compromise to the integrity of it. I think BuzzFeed is going to tell me that I need to not use an ad blocker, but let's see if we can look at this here. This is, there was a fight brewing between the NYPD and Silicon Valley's Palantir, but what you've just described is my basic understanding of what Palantir is intended to do, that it's using artificial intelligence and big data to track essentially everyone. And we've heard from Kevin Shipp and other guests of this show that the CIA and the deep state, the shadow government, has this sort of long-standing plan where they want to create a predictive computer that can basically determine what people are going to do. I feel like Google is potentially involved in similar things, and it even feels like we're practically there. Everyone has experienced that, you talk about shoes or you talk about the new Quentin Tarantino movie, and then you're being served ads for those things. Right. But, that's sort of obvious. You click OK, I want a Twitter account, I want a Facebook account, I want a YouTube account, and you're agreeing to a end-user license agreement that sort of slips in there. Hey, by the way, you're allowing us to listen on your microphone and serve you ads for stuff that you talk about. To what extent does big data and the type of algorithms that Google and Palantir and other companies are working on, how close are we to these predictive algorithms that can look at everything that you buy at Whole Foods for 5 years, everything you buy at Amazon, everything you look at on the internet, and make some degree of accurate determination about what you will do in the future?
Well, what's a really interesting question is, are we going to have a social credit system in the United States? And my answer to that is it's already here. Certain individuals, if they speak out or they do something against the narrative that damages the establishment in a significant way, will suddenly find that they can't open up a PayPal account, or the financial institutions will start declining them without cause. And what's happening is that the tech oligarchs are sneaking in a social credit system into the United States, and it's being built right now. And this is this is against everything that America stands for.
Yeah.
We should be secure in our papers and our residence. We should not have our information being leaked out and being sold to God knows who across the world. Like, one of the major problems right now with Google is that while they were telling the public that they weren't selling our information, what it turned out after the Cambridge Analytica investigation was that there was something like 68 different intelligence organizations that it was selling all of our information to.
Whoa.
And then just this last year, France made an agreement with Facebook to get access to every single person's data profile.
Wow.
And to a lot of people, this is surprising, right? Because they're like, well, wait a minute, how can they get all this information? Well, Facebook has always been able to leak information. And it started with Open Social Graph 1.0. It was a free-for-all. People were scraping that and getting essentially the entire database of America and everyone in the world that was using Facebook. And the thing is that we have to start asking ourselves, how much money are these social media companies making by selling our real-time and archived data to intelligence agencies around the world? And what are the security implications of this? Like, if someone's talking about Chinese organ harvesting and China is buying their real-time location data, we have a problem, because now foreign adversaries can take out people, because they know exactly where they are and what their habits are, and they can get them. And if you look at say, like China and what's America's ability to penetrate into that country, we realize that we don't have any penetration because they've got a great wall of China. And so what's happening is that the various intelligence agencies and countries around the world have this asymmetric advantage against the United States. And the people that are supplying this information are America's own corporate titans. And so, what I really encourage the lawmakers and the Justice Department and President Trump to do is investigate where this personal data is being sold and who is buying it and how that money is coming back in to these companies and ending up on their balance sheets. Because I don't really remember a whole bunch of information on, like, Google saying, oh yeah, and this is all the money we're making from selling all of your data to every intelligence agency, nearly every intelligence agency in the world. And that's a question that needs to be asked. Where is this money coming from? What's it appearing on the financial, statements that are being given to the SEC and other institutions?
Right. And, coming back to somebody we were just speaking to, Donald Trump seems, or at least seemed, to be pretty close to Peter Thiel. Doesn't that seem a bit strange?
I mean, you got to choose your allies in this. I believe that there's a divide and conquer. I don't think that Peter Thiel necessarily enjoys what's happening either. Like, there is control, and then there's like this weird sort of inversion of values that's being pushed by the mainstream media. You can be an authoritarian, but still hate the fact that the establishment media is trying to say that men can have babies and women should be drafted to vote. Drafted for war. There's power, and then there's like this sick inversion that's happening to our society right now. And I think that what's happening is that Peter Thiel is a convenient ally right now because he's realizing that the left has gone out of control and that they're trying to institute a form of Marxist revolution that in the history has killed, over 50 million people, 30 million in, Russia, and then 70 million within China with their cultural revolution that they had in that country.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super impressed by you, Zach. Obviously, in addition to being a computer programmer, you've got a lot of knowledge of history and politics and social issues. So, I mean, we're really lucky to have somebody like you. A lot of people probably would have said, you know what, I'm going to just, keep towing the line and earn my money and keep my head down. And I just can't thank you enough for what you've done. Now, I know a lot of people are wondering, you're saying things that make sense irrespective of what political party anybody is affiliated with. This is not what America is about. Spying on people, social credit systems, corporations deciding who gets what rights. Very, very troubling. Can I ask, and if you don't want to answer, feel free not to, did you vote for Donald Trump in 2016?
No, I didn't vote. I thought the whole political system was too corrupt. I did go to Obama's 2008 presidential inauguration in Washington, D.C., which can give you an idea of, what I thought I was. I thought that I was a leftist and a liberal. I still consider myself a liberal, but now liberalism, in the face of leftist authoritarianism, liberalism is becoming a conservative value. And that's really weird. Like, I still see a lot of people saying, oh, liberal versus conservative. And that's outdated. Liberalism is something that I grew up with. I identify as a liberal. And what's happening right now with the left is not liberal. It's they're being segregationist. They're creating these safe spaces. They're saying that, if you don't think that a man can be a woman, then you're a trans exclusionary radical feminist. It's like these people are out of control. They don't value diversity. They don't value inclusion. They are a monoculture, an intolerant monoculture where if you don't think like them, you're out. And that's not the kind of society that I envision for America. In fact, I think it's very anti-American.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you even said that the left is, engaged in a Marxist revolution. I agree with you. And I mean, I presume you're aware of Saul Alinsky and Hillary Clinton's following of him and her personal relationship with him. She was corresponding with him for years. And, I was also a Barack Obama voter. I am embarrassed to say now, I'm very displeased with the Obama presidency. Are you aware of Bernardine Dorn and Bill Ayers?
Bill Ayers was the guy for the Weather Underground,
correct?
Right? And he did like over 2,000 bombings.
Well, I don't know the exact number, but you know exactly who I'm talking about. Bernardine Dorn is his wife, and together they created the Weather Underground. I've only recently learned about them and the activities that they engaged in, but it was shocking to me to learn that Obama's first campaign event when he was running for senator took place at Bill Ayers' father's house, and that both Barack and Michelle Obama were mentored by Bernardine Dorn at the Sidley Austin law firm in Chicago. And I'm convinced Barack Obama is a weatherman.
Yeah, well, this Marxist, revolutionary spirit is something that transcends borders and is truly a global phenomenon that is trying to flip country after country after country. And no matter how many people die at the hands of these Marxist revolutionaries, they keep on trying. And so, I wasn't a conspiracy theorist like 3 years ago, but then after diving into history, I realized that yes, there is a conspiracy out there, and that not only is there a conspiracy, but presidents, politicians, influencers throughout the last 100 years and beyond have been warning the public that there's a highly organized mafia-like cartel that operates the world for their own benefit. And this Marxist revolution, all these bodies that have been piled up, that's not talked about. We hear all the stuff about like Hitler, how bad Hitler was. Like, the Marxist revolutions have been Hitler times 10. Times and more. And the fact is that why are we hearing about this one person while ignoring all the bodies that have piled up on these people that have been, much more terrifying in their application and twisting of law and narratives and what they've done to the people. I've got a lot of friends that are from Russia, and they've been telling me the stories about what happened in Russia and how upside down the world was. There was a person that would, start singing near the train stations, and then he was so good that he would start making enough money where he was making more than a factory worker, and then he would be arrested and then prosecuted for practicing capitalism. Because why should this person make more money than a factory worker? That was the legal thought. And so this person would be tossed, in a labor camp and forced to work, and now you've got no one singing at the train stations, and you just get this this industrial sound of the ambient trains coming and going. And it's just this really backward, terrible society that was created, and it's absolutely devastating that this history has been removed from the country's discourse and narrative, and you can't even bring it up and have anyone take you seriously, within the mainstream media. They pretend that the greatest atrocity in humankind didn't happen.
Wow. And everything you're telling us about Google and their ability to sort of retroactively change history, because everybody Googles stuff and the information that they get, they perceive to be fact. They can change things and people basically don't know about it. Just one more thing really quickly on Bill Ayers, because I like the idea of sharing some information with you that maybe you don't yet have. On September 11th, 2001, in the New York Times, there was this article written about Bill Ayers. He had just published a book of memoirs, and the title of the article is No Regrets for a Love of Explosives, and it opens with Ayers commenting that, "I don't regret setting bombs," Bill Ayers said. "I feel we didn't do enough." And I find it interesting that the targets of the Weather Underground were the NYPD headquarters, the Capitol building, the Pentagon, and they would release these sort of manifestos. There was a tape-recorded manifesto that Bernadine Dorn sent to a radio station in which she says, "Guard your universities, guard your airplanes." Both Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn became university professors, and they had infiltrated the universities. And I think we've seen a lot of this leftist extremism that you're talking about festering in universities. I also think that the Weather Underground has penetrated the university system, the sophisticated computer labs in universities, the young and talented minds of future leaders in universities. And it seems to me that the targets of the Weather Underground are the exact same targets as 9/11. The World Trade Center was filled with banks and police officers. The Pentagon, of course, was targeted. That fourth plane could have been aimed towards the Capitol building. It's a very strange coincidence.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that it's coming from all these different organizations and they all seem to have the same agenda should clue you in that they're actually all being controlled by the same forces behind the shadows.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you about this. When you were still working at Google, and is his name Sundar, the CEO?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What did you
Sundar
think about
Pichai.
What did you think about his testimony there in front of Congress?
He's lying. He's committing perjury, and he should face justice for lying to the American people and for lying to Congress under oath. Mm-hmm. That's as simple as that. I mean, any one of us could tell that he was lying. Like Google was saying that they weren't running, that they didn't have blacklists, they didn't employ it. And as a full-time employee, I could just sit at my computer and type in blacklist, and I immediately was able to pull up the YouTube query blacklist that they were using for their censorship programs.
Wow. And what more can you tell us about that blacklist? Because I've noticed that, here on Crowdsource the Truth, I'm producing a lot of videos about topics that seem to be popular with people, but, I can't presume that everyone's going to be interested in the videos that I'm making, but it is strange to note that as I look around at other YouTube channels that cover similar topics, I mean, I'm producing videos daily that receive thousands of views on topics that the mainstream news isn't talking about, but yet overnight, even last night, I lost 10 subscribers, and I'm looking at other channels that are gaining 100, 200 subscribers per day, and certainly when I began, I did notice that type of growth. Can you talk about some of the ways that I could determine definitively if YouTube is doing something to manipulate this growth or this subscribership, and how they do that sort of thing?
Yeah, so YouTube and Twitter are both suffering from a mysterious bug that randomly unsubscribes people from the people that they are following or subscribing to. And despite all of the bugs that I filed within Google to try to resolve this issue, because it seems like something really easy to track, right? Like, you know, a bunch of people unsubscribed. Why? You know, did they click the button, or you know, what caused them to trigger that? And as far as I'm aware, Google never investigated, and they've never fixed this problem. And it's something that affects so many people. Like I've been, you know, I've unfollowed people without my consent, and I've unsubscribed from channels without my consent. And the way that Google is applying its censorship is that it's not just doing one tactic. It's actually doing a bunch of tactics altogether. And so what happens is that, you know, it's not just one way of censorship, which you could look at and go, aha, this is what they're doing to censor. What you have to realize is that it's this whole constellation of censorship techniques that are being used to suppress voices that are contradicting the manufactured narrative of the establishment media.
Wow. And what do you think, or I should say, is there anything we as users of the service can do to counteract it or stop it, or?
Yeah, so there's tools that people can use on Twitter to figure out who unfollowed a person, and then you can like message them back and say, hey, did you mean to unfollow me? And that's a way to sort of stop the bleeding for a lot of these people. But you know, a lot of the issues is just the suppression of content recommendations by the recommendation AIs.
Right.
So, for example, the way that the algos work for, you know, YouTube and Twitter is that they look at user interaction. So if I make a post and people click on the image or they click on the link, then Twitter tracks that and they figure out how engaging something is. And if something has more users interacting with it, then they think that it's something that needs to be boosted up and given to more users so that they can click on it. Well, what's happening is that Google and Twitter are applying a deranking mechanism so that they put their thumb down on the reach. They're actually interfering with the algorithms and pushing your content out to other people. So if someone is deemed more brand friendly by, you know, following the mainstream narrative, then they see an explosion of outreach that gets generated on these systems. And if you go against the mainstream narrative, then you see the exact opposite. And one of the users where that was brought to my attention was a YouTube content creator called Blackpill. It was a blog that was done by a wife and husband team, I believe. And the woman was doing the blog, and then I believe that the details are a little funny on this, but I believe that she left around like a month or two ago, and then her black husband started using the tube. And then what you see is that on Social Blade, which tracks YouTube stats, the dude's user recommendation just shot up like 11,000%.
Wow.
And yeah. And so
is this the right channel here, Zach?
It's not blackpill.com. Here, I can't see it. Can you move the camera to the? No, that's not. It's not Devin Stack's Blackpill. It's Blackpill.
Blackpill.com.
On YouTube.
Yeah, it's difficult to find, and this is something I've observed with other. You know, I did a great Mrs. Bill video with Charles Ortel, and when I put those search terms into YouTube, it's strange that it does not bring up this video that ridicules and mocks Hillary Clinton. We got to search all around for it here. You would think that that would be the #1 thing to return from a search engine looking for an animation about Charles Ortel and Mrs. Bill, but look at all this stuff that comes up first.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what's happening, is that Google is poisoning the search results. And they are doing weird prioritizations so that stuff that is damaging to Donald Trump comes to the very top. And they've been doing this now for a very long time, but it's getting really, really out of control. I remember one time when I was searching for something like child trafficking over the border, and instead of finding the executive order that Donald Trump had signed, it was bringing up all these articles about kids in cages. And the reason why was because there was a whole bunch of articles that were coming out that were keyword stuffing their articles with terms so that Google's recommendation engine would recommend them rather than an executive order that was of national importance. And this is part of Google's plan to boost authoritative content. By boosting this authoritative content, like the New York Times, well, then whatever they write about, if they want to cover something up, all they have to do is find whatever news that's out there, see the keywords that are being used, and then create an article that's negative with those same keywords. And then what's going to happen is Google's going to recommend that article rather than the information that the user is actually trying to find.
Wow. You know so much about this, Zach. I feel like there are opportunities for you to help the justice-minded people of the United States to better understand what's happening in social media. And of course, leaving Google, you're now temporarily unemployed. Do you have plans for a future that might involve counteracting some of these things?
There's a lot of right now, like I've saved up a little bit of money, and right now I am, on a campaign of awareness, and I'm going to stay on that for a little bit longer, and help the DOJ, prosecute this, because the election meddling isn't just in the United States, it's globally. They've meddled in the Irish elections, they've meddled in the Brazilian elections.
Wow.
And it's possible that Google, and Google also had a hand in the Egyptian revolution, because the person that instigated the whole overthrow was a Google employee that worked for the CIA. And so, you didn't know that?
I don't think I knew that. That is crazy.
Yeah. It just so happened that the guy that did the revolution in Egypt was a Google employee. And they kind of laughed off like, oh, that's interesting. He would steal all this stuff. But,
what's even more interesting, sorry to interrupt you, but what's even more interesting is that you've just described a Google employee who worked for the CIA, which causes me to question, is he working for Google or is he working for the CIA, or is there any difference between Google and the CIA?
I think that it's part of this global conspiracy to sort of install totalitarianism in every single country. I believe that Google and the CIA were one and the same. They were being controlled by the same operators behind the shadows.
Wow.
So the link that I just sent you is the person, and I want you to you can see the graph of what happens when
where do I
all
get
of a sudden
that
he's had.
Oh wow! Yes, right here. Is that it? Whoa.
Yeah.
So in one day he got 23,000 subscribers? Is that what we're seeing?
No, what you're seeing is look at the subscribers for the last 30 days. It's up 10,779%.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
And if you scroll down, you'll see what happened. And this isn't organic. This is something that the algorithms are doing. He had almost no video views and he had almost no monthly subscribers. But then, a white person gets replaced, with a black person, and all of a sudden his channel starts getting recommended to a whole bunch of users. And, And the question is, here's the problem about all this algorithmic discrimination, is that, there's now who's ever successful has an asterisk by their name, because you don't know whether they're being successful because of organic reach or because someone behind the shadows has selected them to be prominent.
Wow.
And it's, yeah. And the thing is right there in the data, like almost no traction and then just an absolute explosion.
Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense. There's almost no way you could plan for this. From -12 to, I mean, did he produce some video of amazing information on this Monday? That was just the 2nd of September, so last week, and then he went from -12 to plus almost 2,000. I mean, he's got thousands of subscribers adding per day.
That's right. Yep.
And hundreds of thousands of video views. It's astonishing.
It's astonishing.
Wow. So what will happen, Zach?
This falls. Go ahead.
No. This falls where?
This falls within the purview of the project that I released, which was, or that I disclosed, which was called Machine Learning Fairness, which Google wanted to use in order, or that they are using in order to transform society into something that's more just and equitable.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And, we've just been hearing, I guess, today or yesterday that there's all these, I guess all 50 states, the U.S. attorneys are now talking about antitrust probes. What do you think of that? And have you been in touch with any of your former associates at Google? Do you have any sense of what the feeling is at Google over this?
I know that there's chaos within the company. The people that gave me reviews, positive reviews when I resigned, all retracted the reviews after this was disclosed.
Really? Because they attribute this to the actions that you took?
Yeah, they don't want to, I guess they don't want to be associated with a leaker.
Oh, wow.
Or possibly Google asked them as a form of retaliation. And so my reviews got removed, and I haven't really been talking to any current employees because I don't want to put them in jeopardy.
Understood.
And so I know that there are people like me inside the company, and there's a few that want to come forward, but Google has been applying pressure to prevent any more of these damaging leaks, because there's more like this. Like I grabbed a lot of information that was just low-hanging fruits, but I know that there's more damaging information hidden behind silos within the company. And so, the company doesn't want to have any more disclosures. They don't want to create another Google Snowden in the same way that, I emerged.
It's amazing what you've done, Zach. I mean, I'm gaining a much better understanding for the details just in our conversation right now. I think not enough people know the specifics of what you've done yet, and I'm hopeful that these various probes around the country will get to the bottom of it and give you an appropriate forum in which to share this information. I have to thank you for allowing me to do that to the extent that we have today. We're almost out of time. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we end?
Yeah, so, assassination is something that I'm concerned about. Whistleblowers tend not to have very long lifespans. Wow. So my request to the audience listening into this is to please follow me on Twitter.com/perpetualmaniac. And if you follow my Perpetual Maniac, please retweet the things I'm doing. I'm trying to amplify the signals on this breaking story as it evolves. And, influencers like yourself, you base your stories upon the public's engagement of the story. And so what I'm doing is I'm focusing the attention that I have from my followers onto these stories. And so I ask the audience to follow me and then like and retweet the stories that I'm liking, because that's really the way to make a huge difference. Like, people want to know, like, how can I fight back against Google and this, you know, techno-fascism? Well, I'm the guy that's fighting the dragon, and come and join me and help me fight this person. Help keep me alive by keeping eyes upon me. And together we're going to make America a more free and prosperous nation, because Google really is just an awful actor.
Absolutely. That's going to be a difficult slogan to fit on a red hat, but I like where you're coming from with it. Well, Zach, thank you so much for what you've done so far, and thank you for appearing on the show today. You really are the Edward Snowden of Google, and what you have done by coming out with this information, I hope will trigger a watershed moment for social media, because we all want to enjoy the benefits of this technology, but as you're pointing out, it's being abused and turned against us in a way that's incredibly dangerous. So congratulations for being really truly a hero, and thank you for what you've done, Zach. I want to wish you the best of luck, and you've got an open invitation to appear on Crowdsource the Truth anytime that I can be of help to help get the word out.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. It was an absolute pleasure being on the show, and I will take you up on that offer and come back sometime. Okay?
I look forward to it, absolutely. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Remember, everything Zach is telling us is stopping you from getting to the information that Crowdsource the Truth is trying to bring you. So until Zach's mission can be completed and Google can be a fair marketplace, it's very important that people sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Zach Vorhies, a true American hero. Thank you for joining us, Zach. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.